This video is brought to you by Keeps. What's up, Wisecrack? Michael here. I have a confession to make about the team here at Wisecrack. We're obsessed with cults. Documentaries about cults, even more so. Now, to be clear, we have no interest in joining one, as they are usually very bad and cause lots of psychological and often physical harm to people. So it's probably no surprise that we've been mainlining episodes of The Vow, the recent series exploring a cult called NXIVM and its judo champion at 11 figurehead Keith Raniere, who sucks and was just sentenced to 120 years behind bars for some truly horrific crimes. For the uninitiated, NXIVM is one part multi-level marketing scheme where you pay thousands of dollars to take leadership classes in hotel conference rooms, and 5 parts a cult where people wore different colored sashes and sometimes branded themselves with Keith Raniere's initials before sleeping with him. Now, this all grabbed my attention because people like to call Raniere a philosopher.
I have as my mentor an American scientist and philosopher by the name of Keith Raniere.
And according to the university that gave me a Ph.D. and the people who published my book, I am too. No judo skills, though I was pretty good at volleyball in high school. So join me as I suspend my critical judgment and see what this smartest man alive has to say. And maybe in the process, we can figure out how a great big creep convinced everyone to mutilate themselves for the love of knowledge. Let's go. And before we get into it, I want to give a shout out to Keeps. I personally love my style. I love my hat collection and my sneakers. Some people love to do their makeup or sport their Supreme drip. Others love styling their hair, and if that's you, then I could totally see why losing your hair might seem like the end of the world. I wouldn't panic though, because you can combat hair loss, and the sooner you take action, the more hair you can keep. Keeps is an affordable hair loss treatment plan that brings FDA-approved prescriptions and over-the-counter medication right to your door. It's so simple and easy. You can complete all the steps online from the comfort of your own home. You'll visit a virtual doctor, and the medication will be shipped straight to you. If you're noticing that you're losing hair and aren't ready to rock the bald look, then check out Keeps today. With Keeps, some men even experience hair regrowth, so give it a go. For a limited time, go to keeps.com/wisecrack or click the link in the description to receive 50% off your first order. Now, back to the show.
There's no problem with the planet. It's the stuff we do. You will be as ethical as possible. You will be that which you want to see in the world.
Oh, says the grown man in the white sash. So this sounds straightforward enough, if a little vague. The thing that comes up again and again is that Raniere has this cool new form of ethics and it's going to transform the world. Many of his followers refer to him as
biggest humanitarian I've ever met.
But superlatives aside, what does that even mean? Luckily, philosophers love defining terms. Most broadly, ethics defines good and bad behavior. For the ancient Greeks like Plato or Aristotle, this meant living a virtuous life. For your more modern utilitarian theorist, it's the idea that we should take actions that will bring the most amount of happiness to the most amount of people. Another big player, deontology, argues that any good act must be applied universally. There's no exceptions like lying is bad except for when I'm lying to save a loved one from a murderer. And of course, there's someone like novelist Ayn Rand, who thought the pursuit of one's individual happiness was the only truly ethical position.
A lot of it is the philosophy of objectivism, which is Ayn Rand.
There it is. Raniere shares Rand's individualist vision for the world. But I don't think reading The Fountainhead makes you the CEO of ethics any more than reading The Old Man and the Sea qualifies you to join the cast of Deadliest Catch.
We should be building ethicists. People are going to elect ethicists to be president.
Now, if we're going for people who pursue their own happiness should run society, well, this basically already exists in the form of every venture capitalist and Karen at a Starbucks. Also, if we're going for plagiarized Ayn Rand, there's plenty of people in elected office who already espouse her views, so not much to see here.
An act of character, you feel all those emotions, and there's a part of you that is unflappable. Absolutely committed.
Okay, finally getting a little more specific. Now, this isn't a brand new idea. For example, philosopher Immanuel Kant thought any real ethical act had to be disconnected from emotions. So it's not about feeling like something is the right thing to do, it's about knowing something is the right thing to do, even if you absolutely do not feel like doing it. And to an extent, this seems to be what Raniere is getting at. But the crucial difference is that for Kant, these ethical acts have to be grounded in the principle of humanity, meaning that we never use human beings as fodder for some bigger goal. So we're still saying it's a no-go on sex slaves.
What's civilization? People working together based on principle to improve the nature of existence itself.
It's the worst summer camp ever. But there's nothing too controversial here. Sigmund Freud, the guy who made you feel creepy for loving your mother, might say that civilization helps us shove our instinctual desires into a deep pit so we can make the society-loving part of our brain happy. And other philosophers like Jean-Jacques Rousseau thought that the nature of human civilization was putting the strengths of individuals together to collectively achieve greater things. So Raniere's definition is both uncontroversial and kind of boring. All right, what's next?
Here's that definition of hell, which I've come to love.
Which is?
Oh, I thought you knew. The definition of hell is you on the day that you're going to die, how you are, meeting the you could have been.
That's a really good one.
It is.
As they say, philosophy begins in condescension. But unlike handing out colorful sashes to your underlings, this is actually a cool idea. It's also something most first-year philosophy students would recognize as not very original. Friedrich Nietzsche, who didn't even know what volleyball was, described something like this as love of fate. Basically, he imagined living your life on repeat, Groundhog Day style, to the end of eternity. If that sounds like a bummer, you're probably not stoked on your life choices or on the prospect of repeating them forever. But if you truly embrace your life and your actions, you might be stoked to do it all over again and again and again. Raniere's idea is just a rhetorical twist. Instead of pondering whether you're going to suffer eternally as you relive your choices, you instead just get to meet the person who made the best version of themselves. So, I mean, sure, but both Bill Murray and Nietzsche said it better. Moving on.
It is true for you, so therefore it is true to some degree. That's the half truth for me.
This looks like he's really getting into the philosophy of why you never question me. And it's interesting, as Raniere is veering into the territory of what we call postmodernism, or perspectivism. These theorists argue that there is no such thing as fixed or objective truth, but the truth is dependent on our experience and perspective, and that different individuals could have different experiences of the same events. This idea has been explored by Nietzsche, Jacques Derrida, and Jean-François Lyotard to advocate that we be skeptical about just how amazing and all-knowing human beings can actually be. People in this camp, to varying degrees, argue that there is no one objective truth that transcends culture, context, or perspective. But this doesn't mean whatever is true for me is my truth, you dig? Instead, it means that we need to be humble enough to acknowledge that different people will have different perspectives imbued with their own biases, even when experiencing the same event, text, or discount buffet. Of course, for context, here Raniere is using this idea to gaslight a group of women, carefully expressing their concerns about his behavior. And that's absolutely not cool.
So abuse is a made-up human construct. And a lot of times, the screaming of abuse is abuse in itself.
So we can just say it now, right? This guy's just a piece of shit. I think we can just say it. You guys see it, I see it. We can say it. Okay, so what he's doing here is playing Mad Libs with postmodern language. For philosophers like Derrida, postmodernism was a way to rethink how certain we can really be about human knowledge. It was not a way to tell people they were wrong for feeling abused or victimized. Raniere is peddling in exactly the type of bullshit that postmodernism has been criticized for by those who frankly didn't read the books. So, what else does Judo Man have for us?
The primitive parts of us are hungry beasties. I mean, that's what we want to do.
Okay. I almost don't want to give this idea the time of day, but he seems to be veering into the realm of someone like Thomas Hobbes, who thought the human state of nature is one of all-out war, where we do whatever we can to eat, screw, and survive. However, philosophers ranging from Plato to Aristotle to Kant to contemporary figures like Alain Badiou have argued that to think of ourselves as crass animals is to miss what makes humans interesting, namely, our capacity for reason and our ability to seek truth. Kant says that if we were just meant to eat, sleep, and screw, then nature did a shitty job at designing us, because we're also neurotic and curious and anxious and reflective, all things that don't really help our animal survival. Even primatologists, who study the behavior of primates, gorillas, and stuff, reject the idea that primates are just murderous, violent freaks. There's plenty of evidence that our thumbless cousins also work together and have hot consensual relations. So Kant, actual scientist, and many others would say that Raniere Ranieri's over-identification of humans with primitive beasties is woefully inadequate. It also creates a dangerous paradigm in which people can do really bad things and justify it because they're just hungry beasties. Okay, we're almost done, but we have one more gem to consider.
Okay, I wrote a fable once that started that there was a mighty king that took over a culture.
Wow, dude wrote a fable.
And this king used torture and fear to create obedience.
Sounds kind of like a cult leader who collects blackmail on his followers.
And over time, people found that if they just obeyed what the king said, there was peace across the land. But what they sacrificed for that was their traditions, their customs, and all of their identity. The threat of violence was enough to keep social order. But if the king went and killed everyone, then he would have to do all the work. So the people who are being victimized have a certain power, and they can stand against the king.
Okay, where to begin with this one? First of all, he didn't write a fable once. He's as much Aesop as he is not a sociopath. The basic gist here is, powerful people use that power to lord over others, but they often need the powerless to maintain their own power. Not an original, or new, or special, or interesting idea, but philosophically, it's a watered-down version of Hegel's master-slave dialectic, which is a fable that explains the structure of human consciousness, and also everything else. For Hegel, the master lords over his slaves to feel powerful, and their recognition of him as the master confirms this feeling. But eventually, the slaves realize that they actually do a lot more than their master, and that without them, he's basically useless. And the master realizes that he's actually dependent on them to feel all-powerful and special. So voila, we have a reversal of power. Now for Hegel, this explains a concept called mutual recognition, where both sides realize their mutual interdependence. For Raniere, this means that if everyone in his cult walked out, he'd be left powerless, but they haven't, so everything's chill? Okay, so what have we learned by suspending our judgment to momentarily consider the philosophy of a real-life piece of shit? Well, Raniere's modus operandi seems pretty simple. Step 1, take some relatively basic, uncontroversial ideas. Step 2, rephrase them to make yourself sound smart and original. And step 3, use these original ideas to justify your sadistic and manipulative agenda and convince your followers to do stuff like sever ties with their loved ones and enter into master-slave relationships with their friends. Interrogating the tradition for insights in how to live a good and virtuous life, this is not. Well, that's it for our philosophical journey into the mind of a sociopathic cult leader. And hopefully this is a good reminder that if someone is trying to get you to pay lots of money to join their philosophical movement, you should run as fast as you can in the opposite direction and never look back. Seriously. If a philosophical education is what you seek, simply visit your local library. We mention books all the time in our videos, so go check them out. And please let us know what you think of this new format in the comments. We just wanted to try something fun, which is something we all need these days, right? Huge thanks to our patrons for your support. Hit that subscribe button like it's the lever that keeps your train from going anywhere near Albany. And as always, thanks for watching. Later.